take your seat. Thank you. We'd like to call into session Monday, June 4th, 2018, our Albany Common Council meeting. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anane? Present. Mr. Applyrs?
Here.
Mr. Ballerin?
Here.
Mr. Conti? Mr. O'Shea?
Here.
Ms. Fahey? Ms. Farrell? Mr. Flynn? Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mr. Igo?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Kimbrough? Ms. Love? Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Robinson? It's 15 present.
Thank you. Will everyone please rise with me to say the national anthem, Pledge Allegiance, and then for a moment of silence?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. In lieu of all the speakers we have tonight, we're going to be doing something a little different during public comment period. We want everyone to be heard, everyone to have their speech, but we will be cutting down public comment period to 3 minutes because of the large number of speakers we have scheduled to speak. But you are, if you like to speak in the further, as you go down the agenda, there will be another opportunity to speak at that time as well. If you choose to stay, but we'd like public comment period to be, well, you only have 3 minutes this time. Also, you can talk about anything you like to talk about. Council members cannot address you. They can do so at a later portion of the meeting, but this is really for you to say what you like to say and council members to listen. So with that being said, can the clerk please call the first speaker?
Darius Schoenfar?
Thank you. I'll do my best to be brief. I come today to just say thank you to the council, thank you to President Coriolis, President Pro Tem Rich Conti, for putting together on relatively short notice the resolution in support of the New York Health Act, or New York Medicare for All. You'll undoubtedly hear many stories tonight, if you haven't already, about the moral and human necessity of implementing single payer, both at the state and national level. And of course, access to health care for all is indeed a moral and civil rights imperative that Obamacare has certainly improved. But after looking at this issue for the past 3 years as city treasurer, I've concluded there's another imperative about Medicare for all, that if we talk about more, we'll be able to see this bill actually passed into law after 20 years of trying. Because no matter how you look at it, passage of the New York Health Act will result in the single greatest property tax cut in history. Right now, health care is a hidden tax in our economy. The cost of a new car, for example, contains a hidden health care tax of $2,000 to $4,000. Well, for property taxpayers, that hidden cost lays in the cost of health care to municipal governments via employee health insurance and Medicaid. Currently, health care costs are millions of dollars more than the entire Albany County property tax levy, about half of the city tax levy, and about a quarter of the school tax levy. The New York Health Act will act to remove the vast majority of these costs and spending, thus freeing up the use of municipal revenues for other purposes, including, and in Albany especially, massive property tax cuts. Even allowing for Albany's stressed financial position, the additional FICA tax to be paid under the New York Health Act, and other overdue city investments, city property taxpayers will be able to realize a total property tax cut of 30 to 35% of their collective property tax bills. Now, for the owner of a $150,000 home in the city, that means a $1,700 property tax cut every year. The owner of a $1 million business property, that tax cut would be over $14,000 a year, every year. The more the property is worth, the more of a tax cut one would receive. And this is on top of the savings of not having co-pays and deductibles, and of businesses not having to pay massive insurance premiums while dealing with the headaches of healthcare administration for their employees. Additionally, because we fund retiree health care, the city does, the New York Health Act would serve to dramatically shore up city finances for decades to come by removing this cost. I know there is not a single one of you elected officials in this chamber who hasn't had their ear chewed off the door by our constituents about property taxes. So the next time somebody talks to you about property taxes, I suggest tell them that single-payer health care is the best and biggest way to cut them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Mr. Todd Fabozzi. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name.
Thank you for providing time tonight. My name is Todd Fabozzi. I'm the Director of Sustainability with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and I'm here to express our support for community choice aggregation and your resolution to initiate that process. Our agency has been supporting the city in various initiatives, and you're to be commended for your energy and sustainability leadership with your various initiatives such as Climate Smart Communities certification, and your designation under the Clean Energy Communities Program, which the Regional Planning Commission is a recipient of this grant from NYSERDA to help communities to actually achieve that designation. Your city achieved the designation recently and received $180,000 in grant funding under that program. And you're also to be commended for your energy plan under NYPA and all of the excellent initiatives that you're taking, such as your conversion to LED streetlights and your implementation of electric vehicle charging stations. And so we see community choice aggregation as the next logical step for a leading community like yours in the energy and sustainability space. It allows you to have control over your energy supply, to be able to drive how you want your energy to be, whether it's going to be clean energy, renewable energy, and that's what we're encouraging. And we see a great opportunity for you to achieve your energy goals and your greenhouse gas reduction goals through community choice aggregation. And just kind of two quick things. This isn't the forum to get into the details of that, but just to know that this is just simply taking the step. If you pass this resolution, this doesn't commit you to anything. Know that it is an opt-in process so that your residents, though they would be opted in, have the ability to opt out if they want without penalty, and that it doesn't cost you anything as a city to be able to be in this program. And so I just want to pledge our support as a Regional Planning Commission to help you, to be a resource for you moving forward, and to tap into us as you need to be able to vet administrators as you move forward and to be able to implement community choice aggregation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And just one further reminder, if any speaker come up, can you just say your name as well as your address, place to live? Can the clerk please call the next speaker, please?
Ms. Meredith Henderson, Sabrina Fontenot, and Ms. Andrea West.
Good evening, ladies. Before we begin, are all three of you going to speak, or? Okay, so you each have, total of 3 minutes. All right, thank you.
So good evening, President Ellis and council members. I am Meredith Henderson, the North Atlantic Regional Director of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I'm responsible for all chapters from the state of Maine, from the Pine Tree state of Maine, to where we were founded, and that was Washington, D.C., some 110 years ago. We are here today to request authorization for the local chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Delta Mu Omega to formally adopt Bay Hill Park, located at the corner of Sheridan Avenue and Dove Street, in the heart of Sheridan Hollow neighborhood. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, we had our humble beginnings 110 years ago, and we're the finest, we're the oldest Greek letter organization. Here in the Capital District, we have our local chapter, Delta Mu Omega chapter, and in accordance with our national programs, the local chapter have been charged with revitalizing a minimum of 1,908 playground projects. And 1,908 is synonymous to the year we were founded in 1908. To date, under this administration, we have restored 3,654 playgrounds for neighborhoods in various communities across the world. Locally, Delta Mu Omega chapter chartered in Albany, New York, February 15, 1947. We have organized, we have implemented, we have participated in a number of community projects for over 50 years. The MLK Day of Service, Go Red for Women, AKA Day at the Capitol, Toys for Tots, giving away scholarships of over $10,000 to $20,000 to students and following them for 4 years as they go through college. The Alzheimer's Walk, Making Strides for Breast Cancer, and a host of other activities, Equinox, and delivering meals for Thanksgiving in our community.
You have 1 minute left.
It's very
1 minute left.
important to us. So we just like to ask for your support for this playground project in Sheridan Hollow, for us to adopt that playground at that time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Mr. William Reinhardt.
I'm William Reinhardt. I live at 1613 New Scotland Road in Slingerlands, New York, although right now I'm rebuilding a house after a lightning strike, which everyone in the Albany County Legislature knows, where I also serve. I'm also a member and one of the directors of Solarize Albany County, and I'm here to speak about the community choice aggregation. Very quickly, I just want to say what we have been doing in Solarize Albany County is working through the mechanism of bulk purchase to lower the cost of solar energy for homeowners and renters through rooftop solar and community solar projects. The reason I have strongly embraced the concept of community choice aggregation is really because what we've seen is that the potential here of this program to rapidly ramp up the use of renewable energy, not just solar, but all renewable energy sources locally, is tremendous. And as you will hear both from Todd and others who follow me, the three primary issues or opportunities here are to save energy on your utility bill, to rapidly increase the use of renewable energy, clean energy, and also to exert more local control over your energy supply. The other points that I do want to stress very quickly are in Solarize Albany, we have been trying to penetrate what I will call the LMI, or the low and moderate income markets for solar. It's been very difficult, and the two primary reasons are the lack of cash to pay for the solar up front, and also for others who may want to borrow money. Having a credit score that makes you eligible to borrow can be difficult. Both of these issues go away with community choice aggregation. So any homeowner, any renter can, almost any I should say, really, can participate in the program, save money right away. I don't want to make the claim, as Darius can, about the huge property tax savings you'll get from community choice aggregation, but you will save some money. So it is a little bit, think of it like a tax cut. You have a chance to give a tax cut, and I would say it's going to be a bigger tax cut than Trump's tax cut for most Americans. I want to encourage you to look carefully at this. I am available to talk to any of you. About half of you I've met before, but if you want to talk, and I will be contacting several of you, as will others of the steering committee working on the Capital District program, we will be available. We can fill you in. There is going to be an information session on the 12th at the Unitarian Church between 5:30 and 7:30, and we will also be coming back to the Common Council Caucus to talk further, and I look forward to those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Mr. Dominic Casolaro.
Good evening. My name's Dominic Calcelero. I live at 35 Clare Avenue in Albany, South End 12202. I just want to thank the council and all the members for co-sponsoring the Gun Violence Awareness Day and Gun Violence Awareness Month resolution that you'll be voting on later today. I'm wearing a picture of my niece, Sarah, who was shot to death 3 years ago as a second-year law student at Tulane University Law School. And we heard some pretty interesting and sad commentary earlier tonight at the press event in the lobby, and brings back a lot of sad memories. It's tough. I know, what DJ's going through, and we had Katina Thomas's brother here, and I spoke to him earlier before he spoke, and he wanted to know, do you ever get over it? And you don't. So I really appreciate the council keeping this in the forefront. We did my legislation twice for Gun Violence Task Force, my first term in the early 2000s and a second one, and some wonderful things came out of that task force. The hospital intervention program, the SNUG program, the trauma intervention, at least a good does now. I think we were ahead of our time. And the reason this is important is because we see the mass shootings at the schools, and that gets all the publicity, but it's the everyday violence that sometimes gets forgotten, and that's where we need to concentrate. So again, I appreciate every council member co-sponsoring this, and I'm very appreciative of that. And on another note, I support the community choice aggregation and also for the health care for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Calcelero, for your tireless efforts on gun violence. The city really appreciates it. Can the clerk please call the next speaker, please?
Ms. Susan Lawrence. Susan Lawrence. If not, Ms. Sandy Stubing.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Stubing, and I live at 44 Summit Avenue here in Albany. As a matter of fact, I've just moved into Kathy Fahey's award, and I want to mention her by name because I'm very appreciative of the community choice aggregation resolution that you have put forward. Before I make my brief remarks on that, I want to say that I fully support the New York Health Act and the Gun Violence Initiative, and so I want to be on record for supporting those things as well. I would want to bring your attention to the little flyer that I left on everybody's desk, because that will give you an overview of what this resolution is about. As Bill Reinhart said, it saves money, it gives us local control over energy supply, and it reduces greenhouse gases. So as far as I can see, there's no downside to this initiative. The CCA itself is one of the reasons it can save money is that it's such a lean, nonprofit type of organization. So that it would, instead of being a for-profit, it is a not, usually, quite frequently, they're non-for-profit. One of the things that isn't mentioned too often about CCAs is that, or actually renewable energy employment, is how much employment, how many jobs that we can get from the renewable energy industry. According to environmental advocates, there are 85,000 jobs right now here in New York in 7,500 businesses. So it's also an employment and job provider. The final thing I'd like to say is that PAWS, my organization, People of Albany United for Safe Energy, would be very willing to canvass and flyer and do whatever is necessary if this body chooses to enact a CCA. I encourage you to use green grassroots organizations here in the city to help you get the word out, because as Ms. Fahey said in the Channel 13 news spiel that she was on. There is going to be a big education piece for the public, and I encourage you to use organizations such as mine to get the word out. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Alice Brady.
Good evening. My name is Alice Brody. I live on Oakwood Street in Albany, and I'm here, an additional person, to call for support for the New York Health Act. Currently, there are tens of thousands of New Yorkers who do not have access to health care. As a last resort, they will go to their local public hospital. We are the only highly developed country in the world whose single-payer system, whose healthcare system, is based on profits rather than health care. And even the Affordable Care Act created some progress in terms of expanding access to health care to more Americans. It failed in many ways in terms of still being profit-driven. What I am here to ask for, and what every other developed country in the world has, is affordable access to health care for everyone in a single-payer system. And this is something that if we can actually pass in both the Assembly and the Senate in New York State, and get overwhelming support for the New York State Act, we will be able to play a leading role in the country to advocate for this and get other states to join us. Healthcare should not be about profit. It should be about healthcare. And this is something that has devastated our country for the past 50 years. So what I'm advocating, and believe others here support,
You have 1 minute left, ma'am.
Okay, is a single-payer system, and call upon the body here to also give its support. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the next speaker?
Doug Ballard. Mr. Doug.
Oak County Legislator Doug Bullock, welcome.
My name's Doug Bullock, Albany County Legislator, Pine Hills and Beverwyck District. Oh, excuse me. I'm here to give you a proclamation of the Albany County Legislature in support of the New York Health Bill, A 4738 and S 4840, what is essentially a single-payer health bill going through the state legislature, and I know you have a resolution in support of it. We have 24 county legislatures signed on to this proclamation. As you know, in the county, we can't do resolutions on these things. We're forced to do proclamations. So a majority of the Albany County Legislature has signed on to this, and I wanted you to know that, and I wanted to put it in the record if I can. And also, I'm first vice president of the Albany Central Federation of Labor. We also passed a resolution this time for the same bill for the New York Health Act, and we passed it unanimously, and I want to put that into the record also. So I urge you to support the resolution by Mr. Conti, I believe, and you know, I urge a unanimous vote from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock.
Can I turn this in?
Appreciate it. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Diana Wright.
Good evening. My name is Diana Wright. I live here in Albany at 36 Summit Avenue, and I am here tonight to encourage you to pass the CCA resolution. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said because I'm in support of that, but I wanted to highlight the fact that the city of Albany, along with a lot of other places in this country, there's a huge inequality of energy costs for low-income residents, and this plan would help to equalize that inequity. I know that as a landlord, I know that a lot of my tenants tell me that they can't pay their rent because they have to pay their energy bill and they don't want their power shut off. So I know that that's a big problem. I also know that it would help to make living accommodations more affordable because there's not a lot of affordable housing. I had an apartment for rent for $550, and I had 50 applications because there's not enough affordable housing in this city either. So making power utilities more affordable would help that a lot. I'm also going to tell you that I'm in support of the Health Care Act, and I am also in support of gun violence regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Alana Klein.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alana Klein, 29 Glenwood Street off New Scotland. I would like to say first and foremost, Ramadan Mubarak. We are in the holy month of Ramadan, the Islamic month of Ramadan, and also Happy Pride. I was very ecstatic that the resolution passed last meeting. My main purpose for being here tonight is, you may have heard in the news, but I've got a newsflash for certain individuals in this country. You cannot force patriotism. You cannot force people to stand for a flag. We should be making a flag in a country that people want to stand for. We have someone at 1600 Pennsylvania who I'll quote tweets from the past 2 Memorial Days. Happy Memorial Day. Those who died for our country will be very happy and proud at how well our country is doing today. Best economy in decades, lowest unemployment numbers for blacks and Hispanics ever, and women in 18 years, rebuilding our military, and so much more. Nice. I would like to wish everyone, including all haters and losers, of which sadly there are many, a truly happy and enjoyable Memorial Day. This is someone who does not care about this country, who does not care about our service members, who does not care about what Memorial Day stands for. You can wish people Happy Veterans Day, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, but Memorial Day is a day to honor the dead. Donald Trump, at least twice on video, has been shown not putting his hand over his heart for the anthem. And he wants to kick people out of this country who refuse to stand for the anthem. That's not patriotism, that's not democracy, that's fascism, and it's unacceptable in this country. Mr. President, I know at the beginning of every meeting, as is tradition in just about any government setting, you ask people to stand for the flag, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I've got no issue with that. I personally, as you probably see, will not stand for the flag. But I'm asking you, Mr. President, to put three little words into your introduction. Please stand for the flag at your option. Because this country is about freedom, it's about freedom of speech.
1 minute left.
Thank you. And also, I mentioned that it's Pride Month. I don't know if you saw the Supreme Court decision that just came down the barrel today. The bakery in Colorado, which refused to make a cake for a gay couple for a gay wedding, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of religious freedom in that case, or in other words, bigotry. I cannot pledge allegiance to a country where that is acceptable, to discriminate against another person based on religion, based on race, based on ethnicity, based on color, based on country of origin, based on language, based on sexual orientation, based on gender identity, based on gender expression. A few years ago, I wrote, "I pledge allegiance to no flags, but to a world without borders, and to the humanity for which it stands, one planet, regardless of God, indivisible, with equality and compassion for all." Thank you for your time.
Time's up.
Boycott the NRA, Black Lives Matter. Assalamu alaikum.
Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Carol Tanzi. James Monroe.
Are you Carol? Oh, okay.
My apologies.
My name is Carol Tanzi. I live at 115 Crumkill Road in Albany. I'm here tonight to support the CCA and to point out that it will save each citizen in this city money, that it will give us power over our electric companies, and that it will lower climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
James Monroe.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Monroe. I live at 49 Glendale Avenue. I'm here as a member of the Capital District Democratic Socialists of America. I want to speak in favor of the CCA as well as the New York Health Act. Our governor is really fond of pointing to DC and saying all of the problems emanate from there, and I think that kind of obscures the fact that we can take action at the state level, and I think building momentum for that action really starts at the municipal level, and that's a big reason why I think it would be great if this body could support the New York Health Act. We can point to Washington and say that that's the source of all problems. We do have an opportunity in this state to alleviate a lot of suffering, and I hope this body takes the opportunity to get behind an act that would do just that. And I think it will also put pressure on DC to expand Medicare to all Americans, regardless of age. Because if we start doing these things at the state level, there will be reverberations in DC. On the community choice aggregation, I know it's been tried many, many other places, and it's been wildly successful. It seems like a really common sense thing to undertake, so I hope that is voted up as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Marlon Anderson.
Good evening, members of the public, members of the council. I am Marlon Anderson, resident of 214 Lark Street, community advocate, and former candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. I'm coming here to speak. Basically, last time I was here, I addressed the council, the newly minted council, about their role in the future of this city and how leadership is primary in that role. I was heartened to see, after being informed by my connections about the event that was taking place here today, and I'm glad to see that some of what I said is being enacted. What Councilwoman Applyrs and Councilwoman Johnson did with, I'm glad to say, the support of many of their peers in the council, is what is needed to find solutions in the city of Albany. We don't need the continuance of the status quo. We don't need the continuance of the business of the problem. We need the business of the solution. And the business of the solution is the business of every elected official, be it local, be it national. Leadership means you are in the business to create solutions. And the way solutions are going to be found is through leadership. While events like today was well welcomed, we need more engagement, especially in the issue of gun violence on a community level. I would love to see, and as you know, I have a bit of experience on the issue and organizing and things of that nature on the issue. But I would love to see something that has never taken place in the city be done on the pressing issue of gun violence. I would like to see the entire Common Council come together and put together an event in the communities most affected. And I don't mean just the council people from that community or the council people that look like the people of that community. I would like to see the entire Common Council come together and come to that community and bring the light and bring the focus and bring the media to the problem. Because that is how the problem will be solved, if you get a concentrated focus and a united focus on the issue. The business of the problem is not going to solve anything. Snug is not going to solve it. Going to the streets is not going to solve it. Having cookouts with hot dogs and hamburgers and kumbaya events, that's not going to solve it. That's the business of the problem. But the business of the solution, which is leadership leading, stepping to the problem and saying we are here to address
You have 1 minute left.
and bringing the people there. That is how you will address it. So as I said, I am giving a salute to the two council people who stepped forward and organized and got together. But I'm saying in furtherance of getting towards the solution, I would ask the council to unite, perhaps behind the leadership of Councilwoman Applyrs and Councilman Johnson, and address that problem. Because, like it or not, while you're blinding yourself to the issue, people are continuing to die on the streets of Albany. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can the clerk, Mr. Conti, before we go on, we're past our 30 minutes. Would you make a motion? Thank you, sir. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Tina Lieberman.
Hi, my name is Tina Lieberman, and I live at 30 Aspen Circle in Albany. I'm here to speak in favor of community choice aggregation. And before I talk a little bit about that, I'd like to say I also, for the record, support the New York Health Act and the gun violence prevention regulations. I'm here as a member of the Community Choice Aggregation Steering Committee. It's a volunteer group that formed to investigate community choice aggregation and inform the public. There are currently 12 members on this steering committee from various stakeholder groups, grassroots groups, faith-based groups, and we also have some representatives from municipalities in the Capital District. We would love someone authorized by the City of Albany to join our steering committee, and that is part of the resolution offered by Council Member Fahey. I'm also here as a new member of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I speak as an individual, not on behalf of the committee as a whole, because I'll be presenting to the Sustainability Advisory Committee on this this coming Thursday at their meeting, and we'll be discussing community choice aggregation there, as well as at the caucus for the Common Council next week. I'm here because I wholly support the Common Council passing a resolution to investigate community choice aggregation now and to eventually pass a law that will let the city pursue competitive bids for renewable electricity for all residents and businesses in the city. It's an opt-out program, which means everyone, every resident and business in the city of Albany would get this green energy lower cost option, but they can opt out. Anyone can opt out. And I'm emphasizing green energy because that's the only reason our steering committee formed. Sure, we want to save people money on their electricity, but we also really need to move toward renewable energy in our society and to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. That is our purpose, to not just save people money, but also let's move ourselves in the right direction.
You have 1 minute left.
Sure. According to Bradford Tito, he's the NYSERDA manager in charge of clean energy communities. and the community choice aggregation. There are over 66 municipalities in New York State have already passed laws that will allow them to participate in community choice aggregation. I will say that when I first heard about community choice aggregation last October, I was a bit skeptical. But then in the course of holding these community meetings, I got to hear from people from NYSERDA, the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, Public Service Commission, and I've even spoken to people at NYPA. And not only is community choice aggregation legitimate, but it's an idea that has huge potential for benefiting our residents and our environment. And last but not least, I invite you to the next community choice aggregation community information meeting. It will be next Tuesday, June 12th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. The Green Sanctuary Committee is sponsoring. So again, that's next Tuesday, June 12th, 5:30 to 7:30. We invite you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Iwa Subzinska.
Thank you so much. My name is Eva Sobczynska. I live in, can you hear me all?
No, can you speak up a little loud?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. My name is Eva Sobczynska, and I live on 87 Spring Street in Albany, New York. I'm a city resident, but I'm also representative of the public at the Sustainability Advisory Committee in the city of Albany. I'm here in support of the proposed resolution for the community choice aggregation. I have been the Sustainability Advisory Committee member of the past 4 years, and I've seen the city really taking bold steps to implement the Albany 2030 vision and really to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions for the city. And I think the community choice aggregation is a potential solution for the city residents to really participate in these types of initiatives. So I support the resolution, and I hope that the Common Council will take us forward for the city residents to be able to participate as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Peter Warren.
Good evening. My name is Peter Warren. I live at 881 Warren Street. Don't have a brick on Warren Street, just so you know. I'm here as a city resident, as a member of the Capital District Democratic Socialists, to speak in support of your resolution on the floor about the New York Health Act. Everybody I know has a horror story about our healthcare system. Dysfunctional, inefficient, bureaucratic. They've been denied coverage that was needed. They've been dropped from their coverage because an insurance company has to make more profit for their shareholders. Even more common is the experience of getting to customer service and being frustrated by endless delays and being on hold in a system that seems to be designed to frustrate people and drive them away rather than help them. My own personal horror story is from a long time ago, spending as much time dealing with paperwork from insurance companies and providers as I did with my dying mother. So this is very personal for me. I think you'll all agree, and I'm sure everybody in this chamber also has or knows about people with similar horror stories. It's a needless horror. There's no reason in 2018 for New York State or the United States of America to not have universal coverage for all of its citizens. Plenty of models, including our very own Medicare and Medicaid system, that have been in place since I was in high school. That dates me, by the way. And it's run efficiently and humanely for over 70 years. I think first of all, I'm very, very proud of the council. I'm very, very proud of Councilman Conti for considering this resolution in support of my neighbors and city residents and the people of New York. What happens if you approve this resolution? In a major way, You're going to
You
give
have 1 minute left, sir.
serious heart and encouragement and courage to all of us activists who are fighting in the trenches for the New York Health Act. I think also you'll give encouragement to other counties in the area and throughout the state to pass similar resolutions. And as they say, a stone starts an avalanche. Possibly, hopefully, I think starting this avalanche could start right here. I urge the council to support this resolution and pass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Daniel Kirk Davidoff.
Hi, I'm Daniel Kirk Davidoff. I'm a member of the Sustainability Advisory Commission, but only speaking for myself today for reasons that Tina laid out. I live on 35 Dove Street in Albany, where right now our street is being torn up to put, which, you know, it's fine, work needs to be done, but what they're doing is replacing gas lines. And what I'm hoping that we're going to be doing in the future is moving towards a cleaner and more sustainable system where a lot more of the money that we all spend on electricity goes to pay people to do work around here in New York that can generate energy for us from clean sources. So I was just looking up a few numbers. New Yorkers use an average of about 885 watts all the time. So each of us has, you know, 10 bright light bulbs going all the time. That's about our average electricity consumption. And so in the city of Albany, with about 100,000 people, that's about 88 megawatts. So we spend about, you know, 10 cents a kilowatt hour on the energy part of our electrical bill, round numbers. So that's about $100 million a year. And right now, a big chunk of that is going to buy gas and, well, gas and some coal from out of state. But if we were thinking about using that as a way of financing clean energy sources, that's a $900 million investment that we'd be putting in the ground to build about 300 megawatts of solar and wind power. That would be about what the capacity you need, since the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow, to generate the 88 megawatts that we use in the city. So what we're talking about in all the things that are up tonight, both the energy and the healthcare, is what kind of a future do we want? What kind of work do we want people to be doing in our community? What work do we hope for our kids to be doing? Do we want them to be on the phone with insurance companies doing paperwork, or do we want them to be taking care of
1 minute
each
left,
other?
sir.
Thanks. And do we want them to be out, you know, pumping chemicals into the ground in order to get gas out of the ground and transporting it in ways that may tend to impact our health and will certainly, and once burned, will make our planet less habitable? Or do we want to be working on making energy in clean and sustainable ways? So I thank you very much for what I hope will be your support for both the community choice aggregation and supporting single-payer health care in the state. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker, again, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Ruth Sinchaiwa.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's Ruth Senchina, actually. I'm just here tonight to say a few brief words in support of the gun violence prevention initiative, the recognition that this is Gun Violence Awareness Month throughout New York State. We had a press conference earlier today where I and others spoke about our experience with gun violence. I myself lost my nephew to gun violence 3 years ago. And as a result, I feel this, you know, this is an issue that has touched my life in a very deep way and has touched the lives of many in a very deep way. And on a larger level, I think just as a citizen and as a voter and as a taxpayer, I recognize this is a, you know, our country really has a problem. This is a problem that goes beyond individual lives, individual families. It affects our economy. It affects our social fabric, and so I do appreciate that the Common Council has recognized this. I appreciate Councilmember Applyrs and Johnson for making this recognition. And just, I think I forgot to give my address, which is 134 4th Avenue in the south end of Albany, which has had an uptick in gun violence in the last year or two. So I think after a couple years of it being pretty quiet. I also do want to acknowledge former council member Casolaro, who did put a lot of effort into bringing this issue here today, helping to organize the press conference and so forth. So while I recognize that the resolution is a symbolic gesture, it does signal that a recognition that there is a problem. I would ask that further efforts be made on a local level, as Marlon said, coming out on the 30th when SNUG is going to have their community action, their community barbecue in Swinburne. But also paying attention to state what's going on the state level. We have a bill right now in the state legislature that we're hoping will pass before the session ends, which is known as ERPO, the Extreme Risk Protection Order. So I would urge everybody to look into that and throw your support behind that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Mark Schaefer.
I'm Mark Schaefer. I live at 213 Jefferson Street in the 6th Ward. I want to thank Member Conti for his leadership on the support of the New York Health Act. Healthcare should be a human right. Any country that considers itself civilized and democratic would not deny people health care when they need it based on ability to pay. The U.S. spends more than other industrial modern countries by 50 to 100% on the healthcare sector and gets worse outcomes. Life expectancy is significantly lower in the United States than in many European countries and Japan, which spend much less. New York State, the federal government isn't going to act on this under Trump, but New York is the 8th largest economy in the world. We have the capacity to manage this implementation. Canada established their single-payer system first in one of the prairie provinces led by Tommy Douglas. It was so successful it went national, and the Canadians support it by over 90%, are happy with it. But I really want to talk about the community choice aggregation. I'm a member of Citizen Action, DSA, and also PAWS, which is the affiliate of 350.org, founded by Bill McKibben. And number 350 is the parts per million of carbon dioxide that leading climate scientist James Hansen said was compatible with continuing civilization as we know it. That's 25% over the pre-industrial level. We're now at 40% over the pre-industrial level. This is the 30th anniversary of Hansen's testimony to Congress, saying that the signal was there. Global warming was an established scientific fact, and that action was imperative.
1 minute
We've
left.
had 30 years of inaction. Action is overdue. The consequences in terms of increasingly destructive violent weather, Puerto Rico, the California drought, Sandy, in all these cases, the people with the least money who use the least fossil fuel are hit the hardest by the effects. Community choice aggregation is a way that we can act on the lower level, local level, to address this problem. It has a virtue. People have too many decisions to make, and inertially they stay with what they have. Community choice allows a community to group experts make the best choice, which will be clean energy, which avoids fossil fuel costs, pays for itself, as well as saving the planet. And people who don't like it can opt out, but the great majority can delegate the decision to the community. It's a win-win for
Time's up,
everybody
sir.
except the big fossil lobby. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Clerk, please call the next speaker.
Julian Mosachetti.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julian Mosachetti. I live over on 41 Morris Street. I'm here with the Capital District's DSA branch to express my support for the New York Health Act. First off, thank you to the council members for taking your time and attention today to listen to concerned citizens, and I'd also like to extend solidarity with my fellow advocates supporting accessible clean energy and a safe community that is free from gun violence. The core ethic, I think, that these issues share is a drive to build a community that is sustainable and free from fear. It's a fact often repeated that the U.S. is the only developed nation on Earth without universal health care. But I wonder how developed a nation can truly be. If we have the means to cure an illness but then fail to do so, then how is our society truly different than one in which modern medicine doesn't exist at all? For the experience of millions of Americans suffering from easily preventable sickness or injury, there is no distinction at all. Our vast array of amazing medicine and technology is rendered useless by a societal unwillingness to organize a more effective and humane system of care. So that's all I actually wrote down, but thanks for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, sir. This is our last speaker for the evening. Can the clerk please call?
Euro, definitely.
My name is Euro De Poli. I live at 29 Aspen Circle in Albany. I'm here to support the community choice aggregation. I travel the world a lot after I retire, and I see what other countries have, and I'm always asked, what does your country, what does your state, what does your city do? And I'm usually at a loss for words, with other countries, other people. It's wonderful to travel, but you get, on the gun, I was traveling between Venice and Munich, overnight train, and I got seated next to 3 policemen from Australia. And they were asking me about gun control in the United States versus what they do in Australia. On the medicine, I was down in Argentina. I was talking to, people about, our system. My son is a pharmacist, and they have the system where, the pharmacists respond to only one, group. My son, when he has to fill out, there are over 100 insurances. He has to fill out paper for 100 insurance. And I thought that was a joke, but there was a doctor next to me. And he says, no, I got 70. So your son as a pharmacist can have more. So I'm in support of all the resolution over here for, something, and I hope that next time I can tell them that at least the city of Albany is trying to do something. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. See, there are no one else signed up for public comment. We will have a public comment period closed at this time and move on to our agenda, tonight's agenda. Moving to approval of minutes, Mr. Conti. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Approval of minutes passes. Moving to what we're going to do right now, we're going to take a little bit out of order. We're going to have on the agenda right now the 4 MCs. Go ahead, Mr. Conti. Is there a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving to local laws, Mrs. Applyrs. Ms. Applyrs, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I would like to recognize for introduction Local Law D.
Can the clerk please read the local law?
A local law amending Part 33 of Article 44 of Chapter 42 of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to a change in the name of the CPRB.
Mr. Conti?
Mr. President, local law D is referred to the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you. Moving on to reports of any standing committees. Mr. Igo. Thank you, Mr. Igo. Any more? Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. There will be a meeting of the General Services Committee on Wednesday, June 13th, after the Common Council caucus, for the purpose of meeting the mayor's appointee for General Services Commissioner, Mr. Sergio Panunzio.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Duche?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance, Taxation, and Assessment Committee will be meeting tomorrow night at 5:30 in the second floor courtroom here. We will be considering Resolution 33.61.18R, which is the closeout transfers for 2016. And we will have the budget director present for that discussion and to answer any questions. And then we will also be having reports on the first quarter of 2018 and also the treasurer's report for the fourth quarter of 2017. And the treasurer will be there to answer any questions people might have at that point. If there's anybody who has any questions and they want to forward it to me to give the heads up to the budget director and the treasurer, or if they cannot attend and they would like me to get answers to questions, I'd be glad to take care of that for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other standing? Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Housing and Community Development Committee met on Tuesday, May 29th at 200 Henry Johnson Boulevard to announce the year 44 CDBG Home Preliminary Awards and have a discussion. We've scheduled a follow-up meeting for June 11th to finalize those awards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. No other standing committee reports? Mr. Applyrs?
Thank you, Mr. President. The PEG Ad Hoc Committee met this afternoon to interview candidates for the PEG Oversight Board. We had 2 interviews, and the committee will be debriefing to decide on whether a candidate will be selected to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Applyrs. Seeing no other, we just got the Ad Hoc Committee report. Moving to ordinance, Mr. Conti. Thank you, Mr. Conti. Moving on to consideration resolutions. Ms. Duche?
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice Resolution 33.61.18R for introduction.
Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council approving the transfer of an amount to exceed 4% of the total city budget for the year 2016 to various accounts in accordance with City Charter Section 604.
Thank you. Mr. Conti? Thank you. Mr. O'Brien?
I notice Resolution 346118, and I ask for its passage.
Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution honoring Reverend John Bradley upon his retirement as pastor of Blessed Sacrament Church in Albany.
Is there any discussion on the resolution? Mr. O'Brien.
Just briefly, there's going to be, Father Bradley's retiring after 41 years as pastor of Blessed Sacrament. There's going to be a celebration at the church on July 1st where this resolution will be formally presented to him.
Thank you. If council members have no objections, we would like to take a voice vote on this. All those in favor? All those opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you. Moving on to the next resolution, Ms. Applyrs.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to recognize Resolution 3661-18R and request its reading and passage.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council declaring June 2nd to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day and June to be Gun Violence Awareness Month.
Is there any discussion on the resolution? Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Chair of Public Safety, my colleague Dorsey Applyrs, and also Derek Johnson for holding a press conference earlier as it relates to Gun Violence Awareness Month. With that said, despite the progress our city has made in addressing gun violence over the past decade, for far too many people in Albany, gun violence remains an unacceptable fact of life. In certain parts of our city, one does not have to search too hard to find someone who is affected by gun violence. For this reason, it is important for us as elected officials to assist our communities to raise awareness of the impact of gun violence in our community. It is also important that we as a council work with our communities, our police department, our neighborhood associations, and any other key stakeholders to develop concrete policies that will make gun violence a thing of the past. Because everyone in Albany, no matter where they live, has the right to safe streets and a wonderful quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Applyrs, once she speaks, no one else can speak since the resolution is sponsored by Ms. Applyrs. So, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all of you for co-sponsoring the legislation and also the members of the public who came out in support of our press conference at 5:30, and former council member Dominic Casolaro and Ruth for their support with the press conference. And I just felt compelled, given so many people shared. Council member Derek Johnson, who partnered with me, talked about his brother who lost his life. The mayor talked about her son's brother who lost his life. And it reminded me of my childhood and losing my aunt. Her husband shot her and then shot himself. And then shortly after, her son, my uncle, was shot in a park. And so it is tragic to lose a family member and you never get over it. And so it's the very least that we can do as elected officials to just acknowledge the importance of gun violence awareness and stand in solidarity with those across the country who are doing their part to ensure that no one else has to lose their life. So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing that all council members are co-sponsors on this, we can do this one by voice vote as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those none opposed? Resolution passes. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Offer resolution 3761.
Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council recognizing and commemorating Say It Loud Black and Latino Gay Pride 2018.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Thank you. Just I'm going to speak on this one, and I'm going to speak on both this and the following one at the same time. First, I want to express my appreciation for all members for their support. And this one. resolutions coincides with the celebration next weekend, and the Say It Loud Black and Latino Gay Pride celebration will be held in Washington Park from 12 to 5 p.m. On Saturday. Members are invited. I will be presenting that resolution at the event. I don't have the exact time right now. Once I do, I will let you know and invite members to join. So I will formally be presenting that resolution at the event. And the Capital Pride celebration, which is actually both the Black and Latino Gay Pride and Capital Pride also have a number of other events along with the main festival. So if you get out of the program guide, you'll see some of the announcements here. But the main Capital Pride celebration, our parade and festival also will be next weekend, and that will be the parade is at 12, and the festival in the park is from 1 to 5 in Washington Park. And again, I will be presenting that resolution at the event, and all members again are invited to participate in the parade and join with other elected officials up on the stage when the festival begins, so that they can be introduced and acknowledged. The parade does step off at 12 from the stage. It's a little further up. We're on the Robin Street entrance to the park on State Street, further up north. And it goes down State, north, Madison, into the park, and then the festival. For both of those, is on the parade grounds. And again, the members are invited and encouraged to participate in the parade as well. So with that, I appreciate members' support for both resolutions.
Seeing no further discussion, we can do this as a voice vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Resolution passes. Mr. Conti?
Resident, I move this resolution for cases 118R. Request passed.
Thank you. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, we'll all do this on a voice vote as well. All those in favor? Those opposed? Resolution passes. Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce Resolution 396118R.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council in support of participation in the Capital Region Community Choice Aggregation Program to negotiate and enter into energy supply contracts with energy service companies.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Ms. Fahey.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Really quickly, first I want to thank the individuals who came to begin speaking to us about community choice aggregation. I know there's going to be a lot of questions along the way here as we begin to explore this, but I think it's just important to emphasize that this is very much in line with Albany's 2030 Climate Action Plan and our sustainability goals that we've set for ourselves here in the city. It's also coming out of the governor's REV program that's reforming the energy vision, and the idea is to return more control to our communities and residents for the types of energy that we use. And this is coming out of the Public Service Commission, the authorization to do these community choice aggregates from 2016. We already have a few aggregates up and running. There was a pilot program in 2016 down in the Westchester area, and it involves a group of communities. And my understanding is that a good portion of those communities actually chose 100% renewable energies. The best way I'm beginning, I have a lot of questions, and there will be a lot of questions for all of us about this whole process, but the best way I begin to wrap my head around it is like it's a type of buying in bulk to get the best price and to get the benefits that you want. All of us know when you pick out a certain credit card, you want those airline points or those hotel points. We're going to be able to begin, my understanding is we're going to be able to do some of that when we form our aggregate, our Capital Region Community Choice aggregate. So we have folks coming in at our next caucus on the 13th to begin talking about this in more depth, and we can begin to ask more questions about it, and there'll be a lot of opportunities along the way before any. We're also in the process of introducing a local law that we will give consideration to also. So with that, I'm introducing it, and we're holding it. Thank you.
I think we were supposed to introduce Resolution 406118.
Oh,
no problem.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introducing Resolution 406118R. Ask for its introduction and a roll call vote.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council authorizing the mayor to execute a home rule request for alienation of a portion of Lincoln Park.
Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anane.
Yes.
Mr. Applyrs.
Yes.
Mr. Ballerin.
Yes.
Mr. Conti. Ms. Doche.
Yes.
Ms. Fahey.
Yes.
Ms. Farrell.
Yes.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
Mr. Hoey.
Yes.
Mr. Igo.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough. Yes. Ms. Love.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
It's 15 affirmative.
Resolution passes. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I offer Resolution 416118R.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Albany Common Council supporting the enactment of a universal health coverage system as proposed in the New York State Health Act.
Any discussion on the resolution? Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I think it's most members know, until about a year or so ago, I was actually worked for Secretary Godfrey, who is the author and chief sponsor of the New York Health Bill of the Assembly. I actually worked for about 30 years. It was a very experience way. But back in 1992, when the first New York Health Bill was actually introduced, I worked with him and helped draft the bill that actually passed the Assembly in 1992 for the first time. It took a bit of work and organizing and a lot of community support and a lot of people who supported it to get that passed. It was a significant achievement to get a real universal health care bill passed by the Assembly. We knew it was going to happen in the Senate back then, but it was important to move forward. Then we went through a long period of dormancy, and now, back in 2015, and since 2015, the bill has passed the Assembly every year, and I believe right now it has 31 sponsors in the state Senate, or 32 is the majority. So we've never been this close to being able to pass a significant reform as we are today, and it goes it's due to the tenacity of the sponsor and the community groups and the members of the public who have been supporting us, and I acknowledge the folks who come out today tonight to speak in support of it, but we're very close. And it's very simple. You know, every time we deal with expanding healthcare, or we talked about universal healthcare in the past, or comprehensive healthcare, it's always been building on the existing system, which is made up of a number of different insurance plans and models, et cetera. And what we've always done is kind of patched together and built on that system to try to expand coverage. And even the Affordable Care Act, which was and is a significant step forward, also built on what essentially is a flawed system. New York Health, which we sometimes call Medicare for All, because Medicare is basically a model. Medicare is all universal single-payer healthcare system in effect, which is very popular. So we deal with all of the issues in terms of the complexity, the multiplicity, the whether you have coverage, you don't have coverage, the paperwork, and the different types of healthcare. So if you have money, you get a better policy. If you don't have money, you get a different type of policy that doesn't really offer you the type of
further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, since all common council members are co-sponsors of the resolution, it'll be a voice vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Resolution passes. Mr. Igo.
Mr. President, will you please hold Resolution 426118R? That will be taken up next Tuesday at a committee meeting. What?
That was an introduction, Joe.
Well, in that case, would you please, I'd like to introduce Resolution 426118R. Thank you.
Will do. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council confirming the appointment of Richard LaJoy as Director of the Department of Buildings and Regulatory Compliance.
Mr. Conti. Thank you. Mr. O'Brien?
Notice Resolution 436118R and ask that it be held.
Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council confirming the appointment of Sergio Panunzio as the Commissioner of the Department of General Services.
Thank you. Mr. Conti. Is there any miscellaneous or unfinished business? Seeing none? Joe, hold on, wait, Mr. Conti, Mr. Igo? The clerk will get you that, Mr. Igo. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.